Hey everyone, welcome to another installment of Harry Potter Theory. In today's video, we'll be briefly touching on a few bits of news related to the much anticipated HBO Harry Potter TV series. If you don't know what this show is by now, then I don't really know what to say, other than it's impressive that you've managed to avoid it somehow. The show has been a talking point on the channel for a few years now, and what once felt like a far-fetched rumour has slowly become an undeniable reality. And in the most recent update from HBO's chairman, Casey Bloys, it looks like we've even got a fairly definitive release date. We've been saying 2027, I would say, to narrow it down to some extent, early 2027. And now you're going to ask, does that mean January, February, March, April? That we're not ready to say. I'll say early 2027. It's always hard to tell how firm these release dates given to us by TV execs truly are, but in the context of the Harry Potter show, this does feel very real, as they've only been able to narrow it down further as time goes on. It feels weird to say, but I guess that means the show is coming out in about a year. To get even more excited, let's take a look at some of the other updates on the show. The next bit of big news stems from an interview involving Locks Pratt, who will be taking on the role of Draco Malfoy in the series. In the interview, he reveals his experiences working on the show so far, and along with the general sentiment that it's been a positive experience, he also interestingly reveals that the show may reveal more info than the books. I'll let you know how I feel about that in a minute, but first, his quote. "I think with this adaptation, you get to see so much more than the books," said Pratt during an interview with 1883 magazine. "The books are very much over Harry's shoulder, which is great, and that's how they played in the film as well. And I think Francesca Gardner and Mark Mylod have been vocal about this in their interviews. There's just so much more that you get to see. You get to see all the teachers in their little rooms. You get to see Draco at home. I won't spoil too much about that, but there are some brilliant scenes at home where you start to get an insight into how he is." The last few lines from this quote are the ones that stand out. Specifically, you get to see Draco at home. And this is significant because in the books, we don't meaningfully see Malfoy Manor until all the way in the Deathly Hallows. Even Lucius Malfoy doesn't formally appear until Chamber of Secrets, and in the Philosopher's Stone, Draco exists almost entirely within Hogwarts and Diagon Alley. If we see Draco at home, then that truly does mean that the show is going beyond the scope of the books. There are, however, a few ways that I think they could effectively integrate these types of scenes. The first time we meet Draco in the books is at Madame Malkin's robe shop in Diagon Alley, where he references his parents without naming them. The show could preserve that scene exactly as written, and then follow it with a flashback to Malfoy Manor. Alternatively, the series could open at the manor itself, establishing Lucius and Narcissa before Draco ever crosses paths with Harry. Whichever option they choose, these are both good examples of the series not strictly limiting itself to Harry's point of view, which from what I've heard seems to be the goal of both Francesca Gardner and Mark Mylod. And I'm still not sure how I feel about that yet. Season 1 is confirmed to have 8 episodes, and if we assume roughly hour-long installments, that gives the show nearly 8 hours to adapt to Philosopher's Stone, a book that was previously condensed into a 2.5-hour film. Even that film, widely considered one of the most faithful adaptations, still omitted material. So with over 5 additional hours of runtime, the show will inevitably need to expand certain areas. The first book also happens to be the shortest in the series, which of course means the early seasons may naturally require more added perspective than the later, denser installments. Now the elephant in the room, book faithfulness. The series has been marketed to death as a book faithful adaptation, which of course means it needs to follow the books. Strictly speaking, adding scenes that are not in the novels blatantly disregards this rule. However, I do think there's a distinction to be made between contradicting canon and expanding on it for the sake of making the show more entertaining. Showing Draco at home doesn't inherently alter the story. It just helps to visualize something the books implied but never directly depicted. And I think that honestly, if this is done well, it could help the show rather than hurt it. That said, this is also where things could go horribly wrong. Maybe Harry Potter works because it's through Harry's eyes, through his perspective. The mystery, the tension, the discovery of the wizarding world, all of it unfolds with him. Therefore, it's possible that once you step outside that perspective, you risk losing what makes the story tick. Furthermore, if the early Malfoy Manor scenes over-explain Draco or push too hard towards sympathy too early, it could weaken his arc. Draco isn't meant to be liked in Philosopher's Stone, nor are we meant to feel even remotely sorry for him. There's also another big implication. If we're going to Malfoy Manor in Season 1, won't we see Dobby? In the books, Dobby doesn't appear until the Chamber of Secrets, but if we're already seeing inside the manor as early as Book 1, the show could subtly plant the seeds for his storyline much earlier, even if it's just a brief background appearance. Whether that's a good or bad thing, I'll leave up to you guys. I think the key here is to broaden the lens, but keep Harry at the center. Just please don't include too much extra stuff. Next up on the list, we've got set leaks. With a whole new cast from a whole new generation, it makes sense that we'd be getting a brand new set. And as anticipation builds for the show, newly leaked set photos have offered fans their first real glimpses at the series version of Hogwarts, and the changes are already significant. Unlike the original films, which relied heavily on real-world castle locations and extensive CGI, the HBO series appears to be constructing large portions of Hogwarts entirely at Leavesden Studios, the same studio where the films were shot. This makes sense given the immense budget and unbelievably long filming timeline. One of the most notable structures visible in the leaked images is the Herbology greenhouse. In the films, the greenhouse environment was largely enhanced or recreated digitally. The series, by contrast, appears to have built a full practical structure. Another image shows what looks like the base of the Whomping Willow. It's just the lower trunk right now, so the moving branches will almost certainly be added with CGI later. But what's interesting is the layout around it. There's a visible path leading away from the castle, and it looks like the same route that would take you down toward Hagrid's hut. Another one of the leaked structures that has got fans buzzing is widely believed to be the home of Nicolas Flamel, and that's actually a pretty big deal. In both the books and the films, Flamel never physically appears on page or on screen. He's talked about, he's researched, but we never actually meet him, at least not until the Fantastic Beasts films. So if this really is Flamel's home, that suggests the show may be expanding the final act of Philosopher's Stone in a pretty meaningful way. It could mean we actually see Dumbledore visiting Flamel before they agree to destroy the stone. It could also mean we get a proper goodbye, a conversation between two ancient friends deciding to end centuries of life. The films moved through that material very quickly. Once the stone is safe, the story wraps up fast. There wasn't time to linger on the emotional weight of that decision. But once again, a television format changes that. With 8 episodes instead of a 2.5-hour runtime, the series has room to slow down. Overall, the way everything is positioned on this set makes it feel very intentional, like it's all part of one continuous space. Not separate locations stitched together in post-production, but an actual cohesive Hogwarts grounds. And that's a pretty major shift from the films. In the original movies, a lot of the exterior shots were filmed at real-world castles and scenic locations across the UK. They looked incredible, no question about it. But it also meant that Hogwarts sometimes felt like a collection of beautiful places rather than one architecturally unified campus. The HBO series appears to be taking a different approach. Instead of relying primarily on scattered real-world locations, they're building much of the exterior environment directly at Leavesden. That allows for long-term continuity. It means paths, sightlines, and structures can all be designed to connect logically, season after season. Now, onto the most exciting detail, the courtyard hedges. Yep, you heard me right. Shaped into the greenery are the house emblems, a lion for Gryffindor, a badger for Hufflepuff, a serpent for Slytherin, and crucially, an eagle for Ravenclaw. And why is this important? Well, because it corrects one of the film's most debated deviations from canon. If you don't remember, the movies replaced Ravenclaw's eagle with a raven, despite the books clearly establishing the eagle as the house symbol. Turning the envelope over, his hand trembling, Harry saw a purple wax seal bearing a coat of arms, a lion, an eagle, a badger, and a snake surrounding a large letter H. In the films, the house is represented by a raven and the colours are blue and silver. But in reality, the real Ravenclaw, the original Ravenclaw, and the book Ravenclaw is represented by the colours blue and bronze with an eagle serving as its mascot. Therefore, the presence of the eagle suggests the series is already paying close attention to textual accuracy. I think it goes without saying that recreating Hogwarts is no small task. The original films, regardless of the fact that they left out tons of book details, are undeniably iconic. But rather than replicate that castle exactly, the HBO series appears to be constructing its own interpretation with a renewed commitment to book canon. The question now is whether this approach will feel like a natural evolution or a difficult reinvention. If any of these early images are any indication, it would appear the series isn't just revisiting Hogwarts, it's rebuilding it for a new generation. What do you all think? Excited about the show? Let me know down in the comment section below. Until next time, remember, it does not do to dwell on dreams and forget to live.